You are here at the third day of the conference. It's the last day already.
Yes.
What's the highlight so far?
Well, it's a very unique, actually, experience because the highlight for me is the countries. For me, if I'm very quick to answer, it's the different country settings. We have people from Africa, Asia, the Middle East,
It's very
and
much
Europe.
mixed, right?
Yes, it's
Very
a
mixed.
huge mix. We have the World Campus has 35 countries now, over 70 advocates, patients, scholar activists, patients, caregivers, quite diverse, and we're always sharing this with everyone else from different stakeholders in health. So it's bringing really.
Is that also one of the things that you find attractive about Inspire to Live? That it's so multicultural, so diverse?
Absolutely. We learn every day. It's very enriching.
Yeah.
And everyone's learning from everyone else. Nobody's really has anything more to say than the other.
Right.
So everyone is learning from everybody else. And insights from around the world are helping others reassess and reevaluate and do things differently. So everyone does add to the other.
Yes, it's learning together, right?
It's learning.
Developing together,
sharing.
very nice.
Yeah.
And where are you from yourself?
I'm originally from Egypt,
Okay.
but I live in Switzerland, so I've been in Switzerland for 24 years, so I'm Egyptian Swiss.
Right. Oh, very nice. And what brought you here?
Well, I met Peter Kapitein in 2015. So I'm one of the pretty much, I think, one of the family because I'm quite old.
You're there
here.
for quite a while.
Quite a while. And
have you attended many of those gatherings?
I think I missed one.
Only?
But everything else I've attended.
Wonderful.
And I make it a point to attend it because, like I said, it's something that I don't want to miss. It's very unique. And it's something I do not like to miss. So I make a big effort to plan ahead and be here.
Wow.
And
one of the highlights in your year?
Of this year or in general?
No, is it one of the highlights in your year?
Oh, absolutely,
every
absolutely.
Year?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And it just gives you a boost every time you come.
Wonderful.
Boost to do more and go further. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Look forward.
If you were to summarize this event, this episode, what would it be for you? For yourself? For
myself, growth and inclusivity for myself. So being part of a mission is the highlight. Being part of a mission.
Right. And how would you define your mission within Inspire to Live?
Making things move faster where they should move faster.
In the world of cancer.
In the world of cancer, definitely. And that will be translated in the world with other conditions as well, and everywhere in the world. So it's making things, research included, of course. I mean, research and innovation and patient inclusion is central for me.
Right. Okay. You are in the world of research. Is it for somebody who doesn't know the real, let's say, detailed aspects of your field, is it possible to summarize what is it that you are doing research about?
Well, for me, what is nice about this meeting is the recognition that everyone is bringing something. So we cannot all do the similar things. So we're all coming from different perspectives. And I'm coming from a perspective where I believe that a patient has to be included in the decision-making across the care continuum, from research and development all the way up to aftercare.
Is this what we nowadays call shared decision-making? Is that the process?
Shared decision-making,
okay.
And it's moving from what we used to call, hoping that we are going to be moving from patient centricity to patients sitting alongside with as valued partners with other stakeholders.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
So as we were talking about, yes, I hope so.
So instead of having the patient just in the middle,
yes,
all by itself, it's next to the others.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, because there's so much to offer, and the value add is that you have a patient who is sitting also with all the wealth of information that they have and hold and are ready to share, to have them sit as a valued partner on this table.
Yeah. So is it that you do research about this topic?
I do research on patient education and the
Right.
ability to have patient public inclusion in research.
Okay.
So that in itself is a new but fast-growing approach. Quite fast-growing in that the utility of such an approach has been shown, but is still waiting to be assessed and measured. So we do know that the approach is going to be mainstream, but we understand that there will be a time for assessment of patient involvement in research and development.
So if I just try to understand what that means, so you involve the patient more already in the research stage, also in the stage of, let's say, curement or treatments, also involving the
Yes.
patient. And so talking about assessment, so you'd like to know the outcome, right? You want to know what the result would be if you involve the patient more.
Absolutely.
How would you summarize that?
Absolutely.
What is the outcome?
The outcome is to see the impact of patient involvement, the actual direct impact of patient involvement.
I understand, but what does it mean? What does it mean if the patient is more involved?
Yes, exactly.
What does it lead to?
Well, you have to have some measurements to say, for example, that when the patient came in at this stage, then they contributed this and that, and we were therefore able to include that opinion into addressing, for example, unmet needs or other points of discussion. And then we say, okay, well, when the patient did get involved, did he or she contribute in a meaningful way to reach a decision that is pertinent to the question asked? So it is a direct assessment of the value of the patient contribution. Right. And also with that, I'd like to just point out that patient here is an umbrella for a large word. So a patient can be representative of a patient, an individual patient. It could be a carer. It could be a patient advocate, a patient representative, or a patient expert. So we do have a lot
of everything involved.
Everything, and also whether it's a patient advocate, a representative, or a patient expert that has been accredited as a patient expert on a specific disease condition, for example.
Okay.
So the patient umbrella is quite large.
It's large,
but we use the word patient to encompass all of those.
I understand. And so I guess the bounding factor would be that all the people that belong to that group can add a perspective that would not be given by let's say care professionals.
Absolutely.
Science.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What other factors do you have? Financiers?
Of course, you have the regulators. You have the health policy makers. You have the insurers. You have the payers. You have, of course, a pharma and a device.
All the stakeholders.
All the stakeholders. And if you have this wonderful dialogue and exchange.
With the patient's role
as well. Yeah. Therefore, you've got a strong and robust team, because that also forges a lot of trust within the patient community as well, and that is a big step forward to be able to have that trust and acceptance from the patient community.
Trust that the outcome has been discussed with the patients inside, right? Yes. I understand. Yes. So therefore, you say, like it used to be when we were talking about patients' involvement, that the patient is in the middle.
Yes.
And the stakeholders are around it, yes. I imagine.
Yes.
And now it's like they are part of the circle.
Yes.
So what you're saying is that we used to come from having the patient in the center, and now you say actually it's even better to have the patient to be part of the whole circle of stakeholders, right?
Yes.
And so I'm trying to understand what is the exact benefit for having the patient being part of the negotiations, the discussions. What does it bring to the outcome of treatment, research? Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, it's a great question, because what you bring in to us seems quite intuitive and clear. Again, it's a wealth of information, expertise, experience, living with the disease, for example.
Yes, okay.
And we've seen in this meeting a number of different perspectives on this, where the patient journey is very important to people who are working in research and on these topics. We've seen a number of wonderful talks about that, because the patient journey itself gives a lot of insights on how they themselves can, navigate and maneuver their approaches to research. So definitely the wealth patients are sitting on a wealth of information, yes. And it's just the way and the way to offer that to.
And use actually insights, right? So it's actually, if you're talking about this now, it sounds so logical to me. Yet we come from maybe a few decades ago, times where the doctors decided,
yes,
right? And the patient was just like a subject,
yes,
right? And so we evolved, you say, towards from actually that point where now, when then the patient became the center, and now it's part of the whole team.
Yes, yes, yeah. That is definitely the evolutionary track of
is that the ultimate goal, or is it even something you can imagine being beyond?
That's an excellent question. I actually thought of that just the other day, and you ask it now. It's very interesting, because what next is always on the mind. What's
yes.
next? Yeah,
is this the ultimate goal, or is there anything even beyond that? What would that be?
I will need to reflect upon that, but for now, because it's so early stage. Like we were saying, the next step is really assessing this, the impact, good and bad, and all of that. These are all learning curves for all of us to see the level of inclusion, because there's also not just inclusion,
of course,
but it's also the how and the level at which patients will be included in these decision-making practices. So that level will be assessed in the future with robust, metrics and programs. So I think for the time being, this in itself is a huge leap, moving from patient centricity to patient inclusion. I think it's already quite a large leap.
Yeah. So we should be proud of that already, having achieved that.
I'm really hoping I could discuss it with you on another, maybe next year, at the meeting, and see where we've moved from there.
Well, that's interesting, right? That you see these developments over time, and when you join the organization like Aspire to Live, you can actually discuss those developments among each other, right? That's what you can do.
Yes, yes.
I'm curious about the sorts of treatments that we sort of perceive. We have palliation, we have curative treatments. Is there any difference to be said about anything to be said about the different sort of patient journeys that people go through, how important it is to involve the patient's perspective, or is it all the same? There
are enormous differences, and again, this is one of the subjects that was raised within the meeting this time, which was very interesting, because of course we were coming from different continents as well, so we were learning from each other. But palliative care was one of the things that was on the agenda, or that was raised a few times, because according to where you are, you're either concentrating on the cure or actually concentrating on palliative care, as we saw in a number of countries in around the world. So the contexts have an enormous answers to your question.
Yes.
And so whereas some countries would be focused on one thing, that cannot be repeated elsewhere, because they just don't align.
There's no
as yet.
copy-paste at all.
There's
right?
not that. So every context has to be evaluated according to what's on the ground, what's possible, and what we can push for to better and learn from each other. So
I understand, but then still it would be, that's why what I understand from you, that no matter where you focus on, which area geographically, involving the patient as being part of the team, no matter what the, let's say, cultural or otherwise circumstances are, is always a good idea.
Of course. I mean, we are actually discussing it one of the talks this morning, where people, would hope and try to emulate experiences from countries and say, well, it's working perfectly there, and let's try this approach. but then you're on the ground, you're dealing with something completely different where it's just it doesn't work. So you need to really adjust or find innovative approaches that suit the country context. So a lot of instances you can emulate quite a lot, but most oftentimes you have to emulate according to the circumstances, and that's where the patient journey, and along with other healthcare professionals also, that's also a journey. But if I'm talking specifically about the patient care, patient advocate journey, then that should be taken into consideration. And again, I think, intuitively you would assume that does speed up research and innovation. So
yes, it's very clear to what you say. Yes, I can imagine that when you meet people during such conferences as Inspire to Live provides, that you discuss these things, you get all the perspectives from all over the world, and you get a sort of confirmation that this is indeed important. Absolutely. I was thinking, you skipped only one session over the years. What has been the development for an organization like Inspire to Live over those years in the world of cancer, according to what you have seen?
I think the main thing that we've seen, or the main thing that I've been proud and happy to have been a part of, is the recognition that we're not alone in the world and we have to work together. I think COVID-19 really showed that, and I hope we've learned from it that unless the whole world receives an equitable approach, then no one's going to be good for it. It's very important to think globally, and it's very important to think empathetically about other countries and sharing what we know.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is what we do here in Inspire to Live, as well with the global approach to tackling issues. And
I see what you mean. So it even could be like, let's put it as an advantage, that this whole COVID-19 pandemic has helped to realize that we are all one in a way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this is, if anything, we have to learn from that. And we've seen it with the vaccine development, but we have not seen how we can have everybody came together for that. So let's share it with everybody.
Yes, let's continue.
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful. What is your main, let's say, treasure that you take home? Back to, I guess, Switzerland, right?
Switzerland, yes. Switzerland and Egypt. So my main treasure to take back is to take back everything from here, everything from Switzerland, everything from Egypt, and reciprocally work together. Because as much as I would love to see, where I am at the moment thrive, Switzerland, my second country, and also to be able to see that as well in Egypt, in the Netherlands, and everywhere else. And I think that's what you really come, the take-home message when you come, leaving all these wonderful friends, from all these countries around the world. That's what you come out with, is how best to share and this wonderful experience.
It's a wonderful message to conclude this conversation with. Thank you
so much. Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you.